afternoon. Welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. I'm Mo Wright, Vice Chairman of the Columbus Metropolitan Board of Trustees and President of Raymond Consulting. We are so glad you have come to spend time with us today at the Columbus Metropolitan Club. Today's forum, Columbus Mayoral Candidates Conversation, is part of our political series sponsored by Hannah News Service, represented by Stephen Marks and Michael Mushrush, and the Ohio Farm Bureau Federation, represented by Larry Antosh. Today's forum is sponsored by the Robert Weiler Company, represented by Bob Weiler and his associates, also by Ice Miller, represented by Dan Helmick and his associates. Give them a round of applause. We're changing the format a bit today. Questions today will be submitted in writing. You will find a piece of paper inside of your forum flyer. Please include your name and your question. Members of CMC's Diligent Program Committee will collect them about midway through the conversation today, and then they will screen those for content and relevance, and then those questions will be posed by a member of the committee at the conclusion of the conversation today. Now let's proceed with that conversation. Each of these gentlemen, as you well know, are running for the office of mayor of our fine city. Welcome in alphabetical order, Terry Boyd, Andrew Ginther, James Ragland, and Zach Scott. Today's conversation will be moderated by Karen Kassler, State House News Bureau Chief and host of the State of Ohio News Program. Karen, the podium is yours.
You'll have to forgive me if I seem like I'm not paying a lot of attention. I just fired a cannon on the State House lawn, so hopefully that's not an omen of what we're going to see here. Now, I was going to start with a joke, and apparently I just did. But since the gubernatorial race last fall, I just don't find a whole lot of things about debates funny, because that was the first time in 40 years we did not have a debate between the two candidates running for governor in the state of Ohio. So I have to commend the four gentlemen on the stage with me here. They have given me so much material to prepare for this with. They have done debates on WSYX, WBNS, WCMH, WOSU TV. They're also appearing individually on WOSU Radio this week. So I really thank you all personally for taking my questions, for taking questions from other journalists, and especially from the audience today. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. So let's get right to it. Now, I need to go over the ground rules, I guess, here. We each have a minute for opening statements, and then we'll go to questions. And I'll have questions for each of them, as well as questions for the group. There will be an opportunity for rebuttal. I'm going to keep the time on the questions and the rebuttal, so keep that in mind. And let's go right ahead, starting in alphabetical order with Mr. Boyd.
Hi, I'm Terry Boyd, and I want to be the next mayor of our city. For over 3 decades, I've served in various capacities in government, education, healthcare, and in the private sectors. But I cut my teeth as a leader with Buck Reinhardt in his administration. Back then, that's when the renaissance of downtown and the short north actually begun. I served Columbus with distinction as I led several initiatives under Buck, and in each, we experienced great success. I want to come back to City Hall and bring not only what I learned, but my passion for service, to serve with integrity. I'll maintain the growth of this city while ensuring that we include the neighborhoods in that pattern of growth and prosperity.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's your time. Mr. Ginther, 1 minute.
Karen's not playing around today. Good afternoon, and thank you to the Metropolitan Club for having us today. We are living in a remarkable time in a remarkable city. Columbus is a very special place. We have the fastest growing economy in the Midwest, AAA bond rating from all 3 rating agencies, lowest unemployment in decades, and as much as we are excited about our future, we know that not every neighborhood in our city is sharing in that success. So I ask for your consideration next Tuesday as I lay forth a vision here today and have over the last several months about making sure that every family in every neighborhood is sharing in the great success story that is Columbus. Thank you all for being here today.
All right. Let's move on now. Mr. Ragland.
Good afternoon. My name is James Ragland, born and raised right here in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm thankful for today's opportunity. Three things will move Columbus from great to greater. Our first priority should be education, making certain that every child that attends a school in Columbus, Ohio, graduates with the ability to start a career or go to college. Secondly, jobs for the residents right here in the central city, making certain that we can transport them to the jobs that are currently available, and making certain that we provide even more jobs for them to attain. And last but not least, reinvesting in those communities that have been underserved and unserved in the city over the last several years. I'm looking forward to today's discussion, and I'm thankful for this opportunity.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Scott.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Columbus Club, and all the sponsors for putting their debate on, and thank you all for joining us. My name is Zach Scott, and presently I am your Franklin County Sheriff. I've been a public servant for around 30 years, and under my leadership at the Sheriff's Office for the last 4 years, we've had quite a few success stories. I'm running for mayor because I love the city of Columbus. It is a good city with a lot of achievements, but I know that we need to do a lot better. As your mayor, I'm going to be focusing on 4 areas: jobs, education, safety, and neighborhoods. Each 4 of those areas are dependent on each other for success, and each one are equally important. And I believe that we need a vision that's able to continue to build on our successes while addressing the challenges that are on the forefront. And I believe I bring to the table executive leadership experience along with the ability to solve problems on a large scale. And that's why I hope to earn your support. Thank you.
All right. I have some questions for the candidates, and then we'll move on to audience questions here in a little bit. So let's start, and I have questions for each of you, so I will kind of randomly address these to you. Several cities have exploded with racial tensions lately, most recently Baltimore, going on right now. But violent protests and mass demonstrations have been seen all over the U.S., including in Cleveland and not that long ago in Cincinnati. There have been 11 officer-involved shootings so far this year, and several pundits have suggested that politicians in cities that haven't seen these kind of actions need to be taking steps now to deal with some of the underlying issues that spark them. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Ragland. What do you think the mayor of Columbus could be doing right now to be proactive in case Columbus is next to see these kind of actions?
Certainly. We have to look at the problems that are occurring in other cities throughout the country as systemic problems. What we are seeing is an outgrowth of poverty. And until we tackle the root cause of poverty in some of our underserved and unserved communities, we'll never get to a solution. I am looking at the prospect of having public and private partnerships expanded so that we can create more jobs for the residents that need them, make sure that we stop our recidivism rate in its tracks, making certain that those that have had a checkered past have an opportunity to get a quality job, live with dignity, and help raise their families, and then making sure that our schools are adequately prepared to give children the hope that they need to survive in today's economy. What we have is this whole, the 99% are screaming out for a plan that allows them to participate in the good things that are America. And my plan of action and how we're going to implement that is going to get us there.
Mr. Scott, go right ahead.
The issue I see is the jobs and education again. I was watching some of the interviews on television, and they were talking about Mr. Gray, but also it spilled over into the fact that there was no jobs. We have homes that are boarded up. You see a lot of those trends that are going in Baltimore are happening here in the Columbus area. When you have 22% poverty and 17% working poor, and according to the new video, the leadership video of 2014, United Way, it says that it sees no sign in it slowing down. So with this issue at hand, we have to have stronger leadership that's going to address the lack of job skills that we have with diplomas and be willing to actually accept responsibility for the schools. Putting those two together and making them function properly would actually reduce our crime rate and prevent something like from Baltimore happening here in Columbus, Ohio.
Well, you move to Terry Boyd. Mr. Boyd.
Yes, I don't disagree with the premise of poverty and joblessness as the real substance of the issue. But your question was what can be done now? And I think what we can do now is increase the amount of continuing education for our law officers. Right now, the requirement is 2 hours per year, while states like Kentucky provide for 40 hours per year. And I think right now to provide special training for our police force so that they know how to de-escalate situations prior to certain situations happening is the best thing that we can start doing as we work on some of these other issues like poverty and joblessness as we go on in the future.
And Mr. Ginther.
Well, thank you for the question, and it's important for us to talk about what we already are doing and what we will continue to do. One of the first things the mayor and I asked Chief Jacobs to do is to go out and speak directly to the community, all different neighborhoods throughout the city, and hear directly from folks about some of their experiences with law enforcement, some of the challenges that they have felt, whether it's harassment, being profiled, or negative interactions. She's bringing back to the mayor and I and the safety director recommendations on everything from policies, procedures, training, but also a more aggressive plan, because I think our city would be better served if we had a division of police that more accurately reflected the great diversity of this city. I think it's very important for us to make sure that we're building trust and increasing and bridging that gap of credibility that currently exists with certain constituencies in law enforcement. We're working on this diligently. We know this is an issue, but in addition to the issues with law enforcement, poverty and lack of opportunity has to be addressed.
All right, let's move on to another question here. There has been plenty of development in downtown Columbus, including luxury condos that have come with hefty tax abatements and building around established facilities such as Nationwide Children's Hospital. Let me start with you, Mr. Ginther. What would you do as mayor to share the wealth with other parts of the city that haven't seen such development? And with developers so eager to spend money in downtown, can it practically be done?
Well, I think there's some great examples with public-private partnerships that have seen dramatic reinvestment. What Nationwide Children's Hospital and other private sector leaders are doing in neighborhoods right around Nationwide Children's Hospital that is now stretching all the way down Parsons Avenue, and a great base at the other end with the Reeb Community Center, that some outstanding families that have succeeded so well and been blessed with many great successes all have their roots in the South Side, so they're reinvesting. We're going to triple the size of the South Side Learning Development Center. I think you're also seeing significant public-private investment from folks that are taking advantage of our incentives in Wyland Park, in American Addition, in Marion Franklin. There are neighborhoods, and you now are seeing a pretty phenomenal effort and commitment into Franklinton, Columbus's birthplace, and a place that is very special to our present, our past, but also our future.
All right, let me ask you, Mr. Ragland.
I think public and private partnerships should continue, but I'd take a collaborative approach, bringing in our corporate community, figuring out what it is that they can do to help us help the least of these within our community. Our philanthropic community plays a role as well. We're coming up on the Big Give, and more opportunities like that where our residents who are a bit more blessed than others can give back to our communities, give back to our schools, give back to those residents that have not seen as much progress as many of us in this room. It's going to take some leadership to coordinate those efforts. I've done that in the past. I look at opportunities like Cristo Rey and the things that we did with that school to make certain that folks who are a bit more affluent are making sure they target their resources to those that have none. And so the public-private partnership is going to be very important.
Mr. Scott.
It's interesting that section of Parsons Avenue that Mr. Ginther brought up. I was actually talking to some neighbors down there. That one strip down Parsons is actually developing. If you go one houses or two houses back, the people are scared to death in their neighborhoods. Again, we're falling right back to the fact that we've developed downtown. We've done a good job of that. Unfortunately, the private enterprise has not carried enough of the load. We do too many tax abatements. We're developing at the cost of the taxpayers. As we looked in the paper today, we see our schools are going to run out of money in 17, but we continue to tax abate and tax abate and tax abate. Again, the solution is bringing jobs here, and the education system has got to get fixed before we can actually develop our neighborhoods. At some point, we've done well downtown. We need to continue to be successful in downtown, but we cannot do it at the cost of the taxpayers. So we have to start reinvesting in the neighborhoods and get these private partnerships to come along with us to these neighborhoods to do the same thing we've done downtown.
Mr. Boyd.
Well, Karen, I think that we aren't finished with downtown. You know, downtown can also use affordable housing. Everyone can't afford to live there. And so I think that once we begin to generate affordable housing downtown, we can then focus on retail that needs to return to downtown. And I'm completely convinced that this can actually be done in our neighborhoods as well. We can work with the existing partnerships that currently exist between private and public entities and create centers, work centers, and economic development that would also pull retail into our neighborhoods. And so, yes, I believe it can happen, and we will focus specifically on that so we can have affordable housing. We can create the same type of environment in our neighborhoods that we've created in our short north area with small businesses, micro businesses that we've been teaching young people how to create at Franklin University for the past year.
Okay.
And they're starting to do that well.
All right, next question. Mayoral control of the schools is ongoing in at least a dozen cities around the country. In Cleveland, it's brought some stability, but test scores and graduation rates have not yet gone up. Test scores have improved in Chicago, Boston, and New York City, but there are some schools that have not improved. There was controversy involving charter school advocate Michelle Rhee being brought in to head the Washington, D.C. schools. Detroit tried mayoral control for a few years, but returned to an elected school board. So this question is to you, Mr. Scott. Why is mayoral control, which you have talked about, a good idea? And for the rest of you, why shouldn't Columbus give it a try?
Read the day's dispatch. I mean, I don't know how you get a better example. I mean, they're going to run out of money in 17. It's about strong leadership. It's not that we have some idea that's like in reinventing the wheel. It just takes stronger leadership to make sure the job gets done. And it's not something I said I'm going to just arbitrarily do. I can't arbitrarily do it. It has to go to the voters. We have to put a model together and actually take to them to see if that's something that the voters would want. And the way the trend is going right now, they're going to come back and ask for more of your tax dollars. They're going to be throwing more good money after bad. So it's not that I can just arbitrarily do it. You've got to go to the voters. We've got to put a model together, give them some input to what we want to do. I have spent some time with President Gary Baker, who is giving me some information of what's going on. They're making baby steps maybe in the right direction, but unfortunately, in my opinion, it's too slow. The issue with 70% of the people don't get college degrees. Well, we've done away with vocational training. We have 500 students in the city school public schools that are taking vocational with 51,000 students. The methods are all jacked up right now. So I'm just saying I'm willing to take the responsibility to be someone you go to and say, we need you to fix it, and I will be held accountable. That's all I was saying.
Mr. Boyd.
Well, I don't think it's a good idea for the schools to be taken over by City Hall. It's a separate entity with a separate way of governing. We have a efficient and effective superintendent of schools. We have a school board elected by the citizens of Columbus to oversee the schools. I think the mayor and his office has enough responsibility in making sure that the citizens of Columbus receive the services that they need and they are expecting. Let the school board and the superintendent run the schools while the mayor leads the city.
Mr. Ginther.
I trust the voters of the Columbus City School District, and I trust them to choose the leaders of that district. I think Dr. Good has made some significant ground and significant improvement in the performance and trust and credibility issues with the school district, with the voters. And I quite honestly believe that voters know best. I know that there's some plans out there that want to take away the rights of voters, that want to cut parents and teachers out of education reform and progress. I think the way forward is for the mayor to be partner in chief, to be focused on increasing access to preschool, early childhood opportunities, after-school programs, and summer programs. That is the role of the city, is to be partner in chief to an outstanding leader like Dan Good.
Mr. Ragland.
As the parent of 2 Columbus City School children, I'm encouraged about what I am currently seeing within our district. I have a son who's graduating from Columbus Walnut Ridge May 30th, and he's going to college. I see tremendous opportunity within our district. I am encouraged by the fact that our school board is becoming a bit more independent than it has been in the past. They've been unleashed to do the will of the people, to partner with our parents to make certain that the school system is responsive to the needs of the children that we're sending there. Now, the mayor's role is to be is to influence and to advocate for the district. The influence occurs when the mayor makes sure that the families are stabilized and we're sending children to school prepared to learn what the teachers are teaching. And then the advocacy occurs when the mayor can collaborate with the private sector as well as our human services sector to help the children overcome some of the non-academic barriers to success that currently exist. And so I am not an advocate of mayoral takeover.
And now a political question here, even though this is a nonpartisan primary coming up. You each have a party affiliation. This is a two-part question. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Boyd. You are a Republican against 3 Democrats here. You've raised almost no money. You've spent almost no money, which is a good thing when you've raised almost no money, I guess. But how serious are you about this campaign? How confident are you that you have a chance?
Oh, I'm very confident. You know, it's not money that votes for you, it's people. And so consequently, if you wage a good grassroots campaign, like some of my other predecessors before me, you convince people to vote for you. Or they can see the difference between myself and my opponents. They can draw a clear distinction and understand who would be the best person for that office. So it's not about TV commercials. We can embellish several issues on TV. We can embellish several issues when you have a lot of money. But that person that does not have money, he stands before the citizens bare. And what you see is what you get. And so consequently, there's no fluff. There's no hidden mirrors. There's straightforward intentions and integrity that the people see.
And now for the rest of you, the 3 Democrats here, this race has gotten a little ugly. Just today or yesterday, we had these that have come out. So what does it say about the Democratic Party? Well, we've got 3 Democrats on the stage, one of whom has been endorsed. We have campaigns ongoing against one by the other, and one candidate is slamming the other 2 as hard as the Republican is. Let me start with you, Andrew Ginther. Why is this campaign so ugly, and what does it say about the Democratic Party?
Well, I think it was Will Rogers that said a long time ago, I'm not part of any organized political party, I'm a Democrat. You know, we as Democrats have a very proud tradition of sharing ideas and debating priorities. I feel very confident that the people of Columbus, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents, are going to clearly understand the different directions the candidates want to take us. I feel very good about our track record as a city under the Democratic leadership of the best mayor in America, Mayor Michael B. Coleman, strong Democratic leadership on City Council and at the Franklin County Board of Commissioners. Government works here in Central Ohio because Democrats lead, and they lead and solve tough problems by approaching things in a bipartisan, common sense way. That's why Democrats have such strong relationships with the private sector here locally, but also have outstanding, proud track records of working with organized labor. That's what leaders do, and I'm very proud to be part of a party that has done so well in our great community.
Mr. Ragland.
I'm working to save our party. I think what you have seen is a disconnect from our party to the general public. If you look at the people who are funding at very large rates some of the campaigns that are currently underway, seems like Terry should have been the one that should be getting a lot of those dollars, but he's not, and he's getting a lot of them. And the fact of the matter is, we've got to get back to doing what we have done traditionally as Democrats. What we've seen is the disconnect. It's borne itself out in an embarrassing fashion with the school levy. It bore itself out again with the zoo levy. And if we're not very careful, we may lose the White House if we don't get back to doing what we are supposed to do, helping people. If you look around at the neighborhoods that have been underserved, those are traditional Democrat voters. People might not like hearing it, but it's the truth. And so if we get back to doing what we're supposed to do as Dems, then we will start to move everybody forward.
Mr. Scott.
That's a good pause on that one. I don't disagree with anything he just said. It's real simple. The Democratic Party, when we're talking about the actual party, I think they still have one voice. I think they're upset with the houses that are boarded up. I think they're upset with the job selection. I think they're upset with the poverty that's been going on for the last, let me see, Andy's been down there for almost 15 years, so I think they're upset with a lot of this. Now, there are certain voices within the Democratic Party. You brought up the first thing when you came up here. You talked about not having a debate because of Mr. Fitzgerald's lack of vetting and lack of having an actual primary. So when we do things like this, not we, I say when there's certain people within the Democratic Party, there's a select few, that they go and they try to suppress people's voice or don't let them have a fair opportunity at a primary, you get into the Fitzgerald type situations. So I don't think the Democrat Party is at odds. I think there's just a select group that caused the division.
There's always an opportunity for rebuttal if anybody wants to rebut. Not you. We'll get to your questions in just a minute. And in fact, I just have a few more questions here before we go to that. The Ohio legislature has been moving toward relaxing restrictions on concealed carry weapons permits and gun laws, but some cities have pushed back, including Cleveland, which this week adopted a set of new gun control laws that brought a lawsuit from gun rights activists. So I want to ask each one of you where you stand on gun legislation in the city of Columbus. Mr. Ragland, let's start with you.
I'm a former hunter. I believe that those who act responsibly with guns should be able to have them. I do not believe that there is any place in America for weapons that are designed to kill people. I think that you should have handguns, but not semi-automatic and automatic weapons that are meant for the military. I do not think that they belong in businesses. I do not think that they belong in schools or on playgrounds. But this is Ohio. We've got a tradition, a proud tradition of being hunters and folks that have had weapons. And so if the public demands that they should have concealed carry, then we do the will of the public.
Mr. Scott?
I'm for guns. All my life I have been. I'm also for training, though, and I've seen some of the bills that want to reduce some of the training. That upsets me a little bit, but I understand Second Amendment rights and all, and so I'm definitely for guns. If you look at Chicago, Chicago has some of the absolute most strictest gun laws, and they have so many murders with guns. It's outrageous. So I'm for guns.
Mr. Boyd?
Sorry.
Well, I myself, along with my wife, we are licensed concealed gun carriers, but we don't necessarily carry guns. I'm all for the right to have a gun, and if you go through the proper training, and I advocate for that. So I don't want to lessen the training and the activities that go along with it. I think that people need to be thoroughly trained and understand the dangers of the weapon that's in their hand. But I agree that it should be allowed as far as gun control and people having guns.
Mr. Ginther?
No, I'm not messing with Shirley on the way out of here. I'm a strong believer in the Second Amendment and believe very much that folks have the right to bear arms. But with rights come with responsibilities. And I think it is reckless to be running for the office of mayor of the city of Columbus and to believe that there shouldn't be any restrictions put on semi-automatic and machine guns. The last thing our neighborhoods need is a continuing proliferation of weapons of mass destruction in our neighborhoods. There is no reason that you can not own a gun and be a responsible gun owner in the city of Columbus and in the state of Ohio. You don't need an assault weapon to hunt. And our kids are falling victim to gunfire every day in this city and in cities around America.
Okay.
And it's time for reasonable people who make up the moderate middle to solve this problem.
All right. And finally, one last question from me before we get to the very important questions from you folks. There are people who've been suspicious of some things that have happened in Columbus in the last few years, a deal to keep Nationwide Arena and the Blue Jackets, the sale of a parking lot to a developer for a very low dollar figure. These are just two things that come to mind. Let me start with you, Mr. Ginther. Were these deals done inappropriately? And if so, what would you do differently when it comes to keeping jobs and investment in the community? And if not, how do you defend these things to people who say they weren't transparent and favored certain interests over others?
Well, I think these are two important topics and projects that have helped create hundreds and protected thousands of jobs. They were all done in public meetings in transparent ways with several readings of legislation. You know, Nationwide Arena and the Arena District is one of the most important job centers in the city of Columbus. 10,000 jobs were on the line. And we collectively as a community, under the leadership of Auditor Dorian and the county commissioners, city council and the mayor, all came together with the private sector to make sure we protected one of the most important job centers in the city of Columbus. Think of the income tax revenue that was at risk, that would have negatively impacted neighborhood services in Northland, in Westgate, in Berwick, in Marion Franklin. We stepped up and did the right thing, and I believe those jobs in that district are safer because of it. With respect to the Short North and the deal that you mentioned, we received over $600,000. We are receiving 4 times as much money in an ongoing way, revenue-wise, from doing that deal. We've created 200 jobs. So I think the taxpayers have fared exceptionally well. And this is a development that brought 2 companies who had no intention of ever coming to Columbus, but once they discovered the jewel that is the Short North, they moved here from Seattle and Chicago.
Mr. Ragland, you have about a minute and a half.
Well, I think what we need is equity. If I can get some prime space in the Short North for $1, why do I have to spend $5,000 to buy the vacant and abandoned home that's next door to my grandparents in the Hilltop? If Pizzuti can get that type of a deal in the Short North, I think that there are other neighbors who should have access to that type of a deal throughout town. Unfortunately, the perception of the Arena deal was that it was a bailout for some of the richest people in town. You're not going to be able to talk your way out of that perception. And the issue really is it should have gone to the voters like it did before. If it was that good of a deal, sell it to the people so that they can be supportive of it. We didn't do that, and so we've got this perception problem that no talking point is going to be able to overcome.
Mr. Scott.
$250 million of taxpayer money was used for bailout. It never went to the voters. It was a backdoor deal. It was one of those things to where if it actually push come to shove, Nationwide is a great company, $1.4 billion in profits last year. They would have actually addressed that if they had the opportunity. Nationwide is the whole area down the Arena District. 80% of that it's property or it's commercial offices that are not even directly related to the arena work. 80% of that. The Arena District is 1 in 3, or 1/3 of the jobs are already there. Another third moved in. The number of 10,000 jobs are saved. There is no credible data that can back that up anywhere. Now we go back to the dollar parking lot. It's arguable. I know they say that we sold that property more than what the auditor's website, that it produced more money than the auditor's website. Well, that wasn't the market value. That was a mature strip that should have been sold for a whole lot more. To say that we sold that and tax abated it is outrageous because we keep losing money. And if actually there was a real need for that hotel, it would have been met by someone. It's back to leadership again. And I think Mr. Ginther forgot he got $10,000 for a campaign fund from Mr. Pizzuti. He left that piece out too.
Mr. Boyd.
You know, we talk a lot about private and public partnership. And Nationwide Insurance has been a strong partner of this community for many years. I can't tell you whether that was a good deal or not because I knew nothing about it. I think that the mayor's job is to make sure that the public understands various transactions that are being considered. You have to be able to explain it. You have to give the taxpayer an opportunity to vote yay or nay. Everything needs to be on the table. In that situation, it wasn't. And so the people were blindsided because it actually did come to the people on a number of occasions, and they voted it down in one way or the other. But I think as mayor, if you do a credible job in explaining and convincing why a public-private partnership, in this particular case is good for the city, then you have to have confidence. Now remember, we believe in the trust of the voter. So if you explain it to them, then you have to accept the will of the people.
Any rebuttal from anybody before we go to audience questions? All right, let's go to audience questions then. It's the Columbus Metropolitan Club's tradition to take audience questions. And today's questions were written in advance and selected by members of the Metropolitan Club Program Committee for appropriateness and balance. So let's proceed with the first question.
I'm Carol McGuire, and as you explained, it has been our practice in the past to facilitate written questions from the audience. And there are several of us who will be doing that today. And the first question comes from Harvey Hook. What character quality do you possess that will help you best serve and lead the city of Columbus, and why?
And keeping with the tradition of going around here, I'm going to start with you, Mr. Scott.
As a sheriff, what I do with my staff is make sure I take the opportunity to keep an open door policy. When we have staff meetings, there's no rank in the room. Everybody has a voice. I don't always have the best idea. I thank God for my staff of chiefs and majors who are very talented people. So I think the number one thing to be able to lead a city is you got to surround yourself with very, very smart and talented people, and that's exactly what I'm going to do when I'm the mayor.
Mr. Boyd.
I'm a servant leader, and that means that what I ask people to do, I'm willing to do myself. You have to apply critical thinking to the challenges and the issues that come before our city. As mayor, I will apply critical thinking and not have a knee-jerk reaction suggesting that money needs to be poured on every problem. It's not always money. Sometimes it's proper planning and execution. So as mayor, I will implement critical thinking processes to make sure that we come up with the best solutions, not necessarily the most expensive solutions for Columbus.
Mr. Ginther.
I think the one quality is my ability to bring people together, solve tough problems, complex and complicated problems, where there might be a variety of very deeply held beliefs and values that might separate and divide people. I've been blessed with great mentors and teachers, educators, and elected leaders in this community have shown me a better way, a different way, and that will serve me exceptionally well if you give me an opportunity to serve as your next mayor.
Mr. Ragland.
I would say integrity. I once had a preacher tell me that you have to have a message, but you also have to be a message. I look at those who are rioting right now in Baltimore, and they need someone who is an example of how to live a productive life. And I think that I'm one to represent that. I'm a husband, a father, I'm a deacon at my church, I'm a veteran. I've tried to do things the way America has taught me to be a productive member of our society. And we need that level of leadership if we're going to turn around some of the hardest hit areas of our community right now. And so my word would be integrity.
Let's go on to the next audience question.
Hi, I'm Mindy Wright, and I'm asking this question on behalf of Rory Krupp, who is a University Area Commissioner. I am seeing dense development shifted by parking issues and requirements. Do we have a parking problem or a public transportation problem, and how do we solve it?
And we're going to start with Mr. Boyd.
I think we have a parking problem. Far too often in our neighborhoods, you can't visit a friend unless you have some type of sticker in your windshield that they give you. And so that's an issue that we'll continue to wrestle with because we still want to do development. Columbus is a growing city. It's not as mature as some of our larger cities that don't quite have the problems that we have. And so we have to learn about these issues and take lessons from other cities and how they've dealt with some of these issues and resolved them. And so once we can get an understanding of how to resolve the parking issue versus the development issue, Columbus will be fine. We continue to seek out those type of partnerships as we've been discussing this afternoon. And I think as we work together as a community, we'll resolve some of these issues and move forward.
Mr. Ginther, you have about a minute.
I think the answer is yes and yes. We need to do a better job and have been working to make sure, particularly in some very attractive and exciting neighborhoods where lots of folks want to visit as well as work and live, we need to make sure that we are planning appropriately for continued growth and development. I do believe, though, as a region, and all you have to do is look at Morpsey's 2050 study, 500,000 more people are coming to this region over the next 40 years. We are the largest city in the country without a mass transit system, and it's time for us to commit and plan to invest to make sure this community remains a high quality of life for our kids and our grandkids.
Mr. Ragland.
I believe it's a public transportation issue. I was probably the first to come out and say that we need to start towards a light rail system here in town. I believe that it will be a boon for many of the corporations represented here today. I do believe it's a jobs growth strategy for us. It's a neighborhood reinvestment strategy for us. I envision light rail lines being built in neighborhoods where people can walk to work and building them. I am just an advocate of it. I'm an early advocate for it. I believe we've got to find the funding for it and get started.
Mr. Scott.
Maybe a parking at a residential problem. I'm talking with some of the people just last night concerning the White Castle situations going on over there about putting in the parking spaces. We do too many variances when someone wants to build something and then reduce the number of parking spaces, which hurts the businesses, and it causes problems in our residential areas. As far as having a massive transportation system, I would love to see one. From all the studies I've seen, I don't know how we could afford one right now because we're so spread out in so many different areas. And in 2050, you're right, it's going to grow. That's what they're projecting, but it's not so much Columbus-based. It's the region. The region of Columbus consists of approximately about 11 counties or so. So, yeah, it is a parking issue and a residential issue at this time.
Another audience question.
Good afternoon, Yvonne Honeycutt, and I'm happy to ask this question on behalf of Sally Gibson. Clearly, with the primary, there will be two candidates going forward. How will you work on behalf of the people and the betterment of our children and our communities to not take your marbles home, but work with the new administration to bring fresh and new ideas for growth?
We're starting over with Mr. Ragland.
Well, thank you for that. I am an advocate of a team of rivals. Should I become the mayor, these gentlemen will all be a part of what we do moving forward. The one thing that has been a real compliment to this race is that in spite of the barbs that we throw each other in public, behind the scenes, we hear from each other and we talk to each other directly, and each of them has a great plan for the future of this city. I believe that as your mayor, that each of them can be complementary to my administration, and so I would bring all three of them on board to help me.
Mr. Scott.
I'm going to stay the sheriff, but I'm going to work with him, so I have a job. No, but he's correct. We do work, we talk together. It's about making sure that you have a team in place, keeping it open. Whichever three move on, I'm still going to be the sheriff here in Franklin County. I got to work. I work with city all the time. I work the suburbs all the time. So we get this behind us, and then we move on and make sure all the residents of Columbus and Franklin County are safe and protected, and we work in conjunction together. I don't see that as going to be a problem at all.
Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Sheriff, because I also have a job, and I'm glad you brought that up. And in fact, we've always been in positions to partner with various entities of Columbus. Just this summer, we'll be collaborating with Battelle to open a charter school on our campus. And so, with what we're preparing our young adults to do, we're always prepared to consult with the city, with the state, with the county, and we'll continue to do that. And then as mayor, James makes a good point. All three of these men up here sharing the stage with me have come up with great ideas, but there are those of you out there in the audience that have great ideas as well. So we intend to utilize the resources that we have in this city, whether it's these three men or those of you that are out there who can help to measure our ideas and help us take our great city forward.
Mr. Ginther.
You know, I think that the four folks you see before you, regardless of the outcome next week, understand what makes Columbus so special. And that is that we collectively are interested in improving the lives of everyone in every neighborhood. And so though we might disagree and have different ideas and different policies, the four folks you see before us love their city. And they're going to do everything they can to contribute in whatever way they can moving forward. And it has been a spirited debate, but we've always been focused on what's in the best interest of Columbus. And that's the way we'll proceed.
I think we have time for one more audience question.
Thank you. I'm Alec Andrews, and I have a question from Jim Hartman. What specifically can a mayor do to create jobs other than hire city employees and offer tax abatements?
Mr. Ginther, we'll start with you.
Well, you know, one of the things that we've done as a city is to really move away just from property tax abatements, but income tax incentives, so that the incentive is only realized when the type of job has been created by the private sector. There are infrastructure investments and TIFs and other things that we have put in place and leveraged to make Columbus a place that folks want to come and grow their business. But we also have to stay focused on making sure that we have the type of workforce. You know, currently we have about 34,000 jobs that can't be filled by people living in Central Ohio. But at the same time, we have 32,000 folks who've been looking for work for more than a year. So we need to focus on realigning in a more strategic way workforce development, but also investing in early childhood education to make sure that our kids are starting kindergarten ready to learn and are going to be prepared for those jobs of tomorrow.
Mr. Ragland, you have about a minute.
The best prepared workforce in America is what the mayor can help create. If we have an opportunity to bring in other corporations, it will be because we have the employees to fill the jobs that they will create. We've got to do a better job of making certain that our students are prepared to graduate from Columbus schools, equipped with the tools necessary to get into the workforce and into a career. I've done that with Cristo Rey. I'd like to do it on a macro level with the rest of you in this room.
Mr. Scott.
Number one thing that'll bring jobs here is a workforce that's trained up. And that's why I said earlier that I would like to see vocational training on the east side and the west side. We get our workforce trained up. We have a lot of resources as far as companies here that could give us good direction on the type of training that we need. And it goes right back to the schools again. You know, when I was in school, we had metal shop, we had wood shop, we had small engines. We had a lot of vocational training that we were learning in school. Now only 500 kids in the Columbus Public Schools get that opportunity. So again, it's train up what we have and start bringing up our kids to be able to work with their hands or do whatever kind of jobs they want to make sure that those jobs are coming in. The number one thing we got to do is train up a workforce.
And Mr. Boyd.
You know, from the mayor's office, we can advocate and also create extracurricular activities that would prepare our young people for the type of jobs that Mr. Ginther is talking about. We have over 30,000 jobs that are going unfilled. Those are jobs, that's low-hanging fruit. And so if we can prepare those who are unemployed, underemployed, to fill those jobs, and also we can generate our own jobs by creating micro businesses. Other organizations have done it. We have a great example of it in the Short North. Well, we can duplicate the Short North in all of our neighborhoods and create jobs through that. So it's possible for the mayor to create jobs.
And finally, to close this out, each candidate has 30 seconds for a final closing remark. We're going to start with you, reverse alphabetical order. Right. Mr. Scott.
All right, thank you for hosting again. Privileged to be here. I love the city of Columbus. It is a good city. We have a lot of achievements. I want to see us go from good to great. And I think in order to do that, we have to have some real serious leadership change, not just personnel change. We have to have a different direction, moving in a different direction. That's going to be strong, experienced leadership to not only build on successes, but address those challenges. And I feel I'm your candidate, so hopefully you'll vote next Tuesday for Zach Scott. Thank you.
All right, 30 seconds. Mr. Ragland. Well,
thank you again for this opportunity. I represent visionary leadership, 3 areas: education, jobs, community reinvestment. I understand how City Hall works. I've been there. I understand what we can do to help everyone within this community. I want to see the pie grow. I'm just really excited about the opportunity to work with each of you, continue to work with each of you to help make this city move from great to greater. My name is James Ragland. I thank you for your time today.
30 seconds, right on, Mr. Ginther.
Well, thank you, Karen, for doing a great job moderating for energetic and articulate folks who wanted to share their visions today. I ask you, though, to think about this election in a very different way. It really isn't about us. It's not about the four of us. It's about you and your family and the type of future you want to leave for your kids and grandkids. So I ask you to go to andrewginther.com and read more about what we're about and what we're focused on in building a future where every family in every neighborhood is sharing in our success. I'd ask for your vote, but it's more important to me that you exercise your right to vote.
That's 30 seconds.
I would like most of them.
And to wrap this all up, Mr. Boyd, 30 seconds.
Well, I want to thank the Metropolitan Club and you too, Karen, for allowing us to share some of our ideas to advance this city. I ask for your support and to work along with me because the work is not done. And there's a lot yet to be done. But to work with me to advance this city forward. Because when Michael Coleman leaves City Hall, there will be a void, but we could fill that void with Terry Boyd. But we need to work together to get that done. And so
That's 30 seconds.
I'm Terry Boyd, Mayor for Columbus.
Thank you all very much.
Well, we know you enjoyed today's forum. Let me first say thank you to our wonderful moderator, Karen Kassler from State House News, and to all of our candidates, Terry Boyd, Andrew Ginther, James Ragland, and Zach Scott. Thank you all for being here. Let's give them a round of applause. Finally, we can continue the conversation in the lobby over coffee and cookies. Just know you can always rewatch our programming on CTV Columbus Television, WOSU, and through the Ohio channel and our YouTube channel. Enjoy your week. Thank you very much for being here.